Story 3. The Warning Note, Missouri, 2021. Jake Harper had been driving for 3 days and still hadn't figured out what he was running from. The cheap answer was St. Louis, a dead-end job, an ex-girlfriend who threw his vinyl collection into the street, a college career that stalled somewhere between intro to philosophy and why bother. But the deeper truth sat quieter, coiled behind the ribs, the way silence could start to sound like a verdict. Now silence was all he had. The road west of Columbia stretched flat and black under a November sky that had forgotten stars. His sedan's heater wheezed out lukewarm air. The dash clock read 1:04 a.m., a low-fuel light blinked like a pulse at the corner of his vision. When the gas station sign appeared, a dying rectangle advertising Diesel's Soda Lotto, it looked less like salvation than a test. The place huddled beside a shuttered motel, one window lit, the rest of the building collapsed into shadow. Jake pulled in, gravel popping under the tires. One pump, one flickering canopy light. Inside, a lone cashier sat behind glass, head bent over a magazine. He cut the engine and let the night catch up to him. The quiet was so total it seemed to press against the doors. Somewhere far off, a train moaned like a ghost, changing its mind. Just fuel, he told himself. 5 minutes and gone. He slid out, swiping his card. The reader blinked, pay inside. Of course. The door chime gave a half-hearted ding when he entered. The interior smelled of burnt coffee and floor cleaner. A small TV above the counter played the weather on mute, rain bands drifting east, blue over gray. The woman behind the counter looked up. Early 30s, brown hair pulled tight, expression carved from fatigue. Her name tag read TESS. "Pump one," she asked. "Yeah, fill it, please," she rang it up. "You're out late." "Road trip," Jake said. Trying to see what the middle of nowhere looks like. Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Congratulations, you found it." He slid a 20 across. When she handed back the receipt, her fingers brushed his cold, dry, deliberate. Something else slid with the paper, a small folded note, thumb smudged and creased. Jake blinked at her. She didn't look back. Her eyes tracked the TV instead. He pocketed the note on reflex, went to grab snacks. As he turned down the aisle, the reflection in the cooler door showed 2 men outside by his car, both in dark jackets. One squatted near the rear tire, tapping it lightly with a wrench. The other leaned against the hood, watching the store window. Jake froze, candy bar half lifted. His first thought was coincidence. His second was Tess gave me that note for a reason. He ducked behind a shelf and unfolded it with shaking hands. The handwriting was tight, hurried. "Don't go back, they're watching. Call 911 from the bathroom, lock the door. T." His pulse kicked so hard he felt it in his throat. The cooler's glass showed movement. The man at his car stood now, gesturing toward the store. The other nodded, slid a hand into his pocket. Jake forced himself into motion, walking casual toward the back. His mind cataloged exits automatically. Front door, no. Side window, bars. Restroom, maybe. The bathroom door was metal, unmarked except for a half-peeled sticker that once said EMPLOYES only. He slipped inside and threw the bolt. The lock clicked like a gun being cocked. The room was small. A sink, a mirror cracked through the middle, one buzzing fluorescent that turned skin corpse white. He pulled out his phone, 2 bars of signal. 911, what's your emergency?" He kept his voice low. "Gas station off I-70 near Columbia, 2 men tampering with my car, one armed I think. Cashier warned me they're outside now." The operator's tone shifted instantly. "Stay in the restroom, sir." "Can you give me a name or nearby road sign?" Jake racked his brain. Old motel next door, neon sign says sleep tight in," half the letters out. "Copy that, officers en route. Do not leave until you see flashing lights. Keep the door locked." "Please hurry," he said, hatting the plea in it. He listened. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate on tile. A knock, 3 short, polite taps. "Hey, buddy," a man's voice called, cheerful. "Everything okay in there?" Jake's throat dried. He said nothing. Another knock, firmer. "We just want to talk. You dropped something outside." The knob jiggled once. Then silence. Seconds stretched like wire. He could hear Tess faintly through the thin wall, her voice steady, maybe stalling them. "Stores closed, gentlemen. Pump's card reader's broken." One of the men laughed, low and mean. "We'll wait for him." Jake stared at his reflection. The crack across the mirror split his face clean in half. He thought absurdly of his old philosophy professor talking about dual natures, the watcher and the watched. Right now both halves were terrified. The dispatcher's voice whispered through the phone. "Units are 3 minutes out. Are you safe?" He almost laughed, define safe. Another sound outside, the heavy thunk of something hitting the counter. Then Tess's voice, sharper now. "Leave, he's called the police." A scrape of shoes, a muttered curse, then the door chime. Silence. Jake pressed his ear to the metal. Nothing. He counted to 30, then another 30. When he finally cracked the door open, Tess stood behind the counter, breathing hard, a baseball bat in her hands. The TV had gone to static. "They left," he whispered. She nodded once. "For now." Blue lights flared outside, painting the windows. Relief hit so hard his knees went weak. He almost laughed again, dizzy with it. "Don't thank me yet," Tess said quietly. "Go look at your car." He stepped out with the nearest officer. Cold wind hit like a slap. The sedan sat innocent in the wash of strobes, except for the rear tire. A wrench lay beside it, and carved into the rubber, neat and deliberate, were 3 small vertical slashes forming a rough triangle. The officer frowned. "Symbolic, maybe. Seen that before." Jake's stomach dropped. "What does it mean?" "Could mean nothing," the cop said. "Could mean they planned to come back." They took statements for an hour, shining flashlights into darkness that didn't care. When the cruisers finally rolled away, Tess locked the door and sagged against the counter. "You okay?" Jake asked. "Ask me in the morning," she said. "You can crash in the break room if you want. Safer than the motel." He hesitated. "I don't want to get you in trouble." She shook her head. "Too late for that." He lay on the break room couch listening to the hum of the soda fridge. Every so often a semi passed on the interstate, a long sigh through the walls. Around 3 a.m., half asleep, he thought he heard footsteps outside again, soft crunching on gravel, then the quiet metallic click of a lighter. He froze, breathing through his mouth. The sound drifted away toward the motel. At dawn, he stepped outside. The air smelled of frost and diesel. His car's tire was flat, cleanly slit, sabotaged after the police left. On the driver's window, traced in condensation, 3 little ticks arranged like a clock, 2, 6, and 10 o'clock. And stuck beneath the wiper blade, a white business card, blank except for black block letters. "We saw you inside." Morning arrived like a hangover, gray, cold, and too bright. The gas station looked different in daylight, smaller, more fragile, every flaw visible. The cracked asphalt shimmered with a thin film of oil. The motel next door, the Sleep Tight Inn, wasn't just shuttered, it was rotting. Window curtains hung like tongues, and the roofline sagged as if the building had exhaled and forgotten to inhale again. Jake's car sat lopsided with its ruined tire. Tess stood beside it with 2 mugs of coffee, eyes hidden behind cheap sunglasses. She looked like someone who'd already lived this morning too many times. "Spare, under the trunk," she said. "I'll help." Jake crouched by the jack. "You didn't have to." "Yeah," she said flatly. "I did." They worked in silence, metal groaning against the frost. When he lifted the punctured tire, he noticed something inside the slit, not rubber, not rock. A folded scrap of paper, shoved deep into the cut. He eased it out carefully. The ink had bled, but 3 words were still legible. "We follow light." He stared at it, the words crawling under his skin. "Is this some kind of sick game?" Tess didn't answer immediately. She poured the rest of her coffee into the dust. "You ever notice how the cameras at these places never work?" Jake blinked. "What?" She nodded toward the rusted security dome above the door. "That one, been dead 6 months. Doesn't matter. They always find the blind spots anyway." He studied her. "You're saying this has happened before. Last winter." Her jaw tightened. "Trucker stopped in for gas, said some guys were following him from the interstate. He hid in here like you did. Cops came, said he was imagining things. He left," and she looked toward the motel. "Never saw him again." Jake followed her gaze. A broken vacancy sign lay face down in the weeds. "You think he's over there?" "I think this place holds onto bad habits," Tess said. "And you just got written into one." He looked at the faint tick still visible on his window. "You mean the mark?" "Yeah. What does it mean?" Tess hesitated. "Depends who you ask. The state police think it's a gang code. The old-timers say it's some kind of warning, like they tag the ones they're done with so others don't waste their time. But the stories that stick." She glanced around, voice lowering. "They say the marks attract things, not people. Something older that hunts along the interstate when it's quiet enough to hear the lines hum." Jake almost laughed, but it came out strangled. "You believe that?" She shrugged. "Doesn't matter what I believe, you saw what they did, and they don't always come back alone." The motel. By noon, Jake couldn't sit still. The air inside the station felt stale, thick with nerves and caffeine. Tess sat on the counter, flipping through old security footage that didn't exist. The monitor showed nothing but static. He said, "I'm gonna look next door." "Bad idea." I just want to see. You won't like what you see. He managed a weak grin. Story of my life, Tess sighed. Take this at least. She reached under the counter and pulled out a maglite the size of a club. If you hear humming, leave. Humming? She didn't elaborate. The Sleep Tight Inn was 4 doors wide, 8 rooms deep. Every window either boarded or broken. The air smelled of mold and something sweeter beneath the rot of forgotten fruit. A no vacancy sign lay in shards by the entrance. Inside, the lobby carpet was a graveyard of moths. Dust floated like ash. On the wall behind the counter hung a corkboard of faded Polaroids, guests smiling under sunlit skis. Jake's eyes lingered on one, a bearded trucker, mid-40s, giving a thumbs up beside his rig. Scrawled on the bottom, Mike R. Winter 2020. He moved closer. Each photo had a faint circular stain around the edges like a watermark. He brushed one with his thumb. The surface felt tacky. The humming started softly, a low vibration through the floorboards, almost like an engine idling underground. He froze. The sound rose a pitch, then stopped. Hello? His voice came out too loud. Something answered. A door latch clicked in the hallway behind him. Jake swung the flashlight. Dust swirled. The farthest door, room 108, stood slightly ajar. Inside, darkness deeper than shadow. Cops said you were gone, he whispered. Guess not. He stepped closer, light trembling across peeling wallpaper. The hum returned, louder now, not mechanical, resonant, like a throat clearing from below the earth. He stopped at the threshold and shone the beam inside. The room was almost empty. Stripped mattress, broken TV, walls painted with handprints in what looked like grease. But on the far wall above the headboard, someone had carved the same circle symbol, deep gouges, 3 ticks etched at 2, 6, and 10. Underneath, written in black marker. We see through glass. Jake staggered back, heart thudding. The hum shifted to something else, faint, rhythmic knocking like fingernails on metal. He swept the beam toward the sound. It was coming from the TV. The screen was blank but faintly vibrating as if something on the other side were testing the surface. A cold draft brushed his neck. He turned, the door had closed. He lunged for it, twisting the handle. It stuck, then gave way with a sudden snap. He stumbled into the hallway, slammed it shut, and didn't stop until he was outside in daylight, gasping. Tess was waiting at the station door, arms folded. I told you not to go in there. He dropped the flashlight on the counter. There's a symbol carved in the wall, same as my car. And something in the TV. Yeah, she said quietly. I know. The call. He sat on milk crates behind the station, smoking in silence. The sun was low, turning the fields the color of old pennies. Jake felt hollowed out. Finally he asked, why stay here? Why not just leave? Tess smiled without humor. You ever try to outrun your own address? This place pays cash. No questions, no background check, and someone's gotta keep the lights on for folks like you. She flicked ash into the gravel. Besides, they don't bother me much anymore. Not since. She stopped. Since what? Since I started writing notes. Jake stared. You mean warnings like the one you gave me? Yeah, if someone listens, it breaks the pattern for a while. Pattern? People come, people go missing, the mark shows up again. It's like the road wants its quota. He thought of the child mannequin from the other stories he'd read online, fake accidents, staged traps. He shivered. You think it's all connected? I think the road doesn't care about state lines, she said. Her phone buzzed on the crate between them. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Yeah. Static, then a man's voice. You left the lights on. Tess froze. Who is this? The line went dead. Jake's pulse spiked. What did he mean? She stood, scanning the darkening lot. The neon sign, dead for years, was faintly glowing now, each letter flickering as if fighting to remember its name. That, she said, means they found us. The return. By nightfall, fog rolled in from the fields, thick enough to eat sound. Tess killed the interior lights and locked the doors. They crouched behind the counter, breath shallow. Outside, gravel crunched. Jake peeked through a gap in the blinds. 2 figures emerged from the fog, the same men from last night, moving slow, deliberate. One carried the wrench, the other held something smaller that glinted silver. They don't quit, Jake whispered. They don't have to, Tess said. They only need to wait for you to panic. A hand slapped the glass open, wet, deliberate. Jake flinched back. The man's face pressed close, smiling. His other hand lifted something, the business card that had been under Jake's wiper. He flattened it to the window. Written across it now in smeared ink. Light attracts them. The neon sign outside flickered brighter, bathing the lot in sickly pink. Tess hissed, turn off your phone. He did. The glow died. The neon dimmed, then winked out completely. Silence. Then knocking, slow, on the side door this time, Tess raised the maglite like a weapon. Back room now. They slipped through the stockroom, past crates of expired chips and cleaning fluid. The air stank of mildew. The back door was metal, padlocked from inside. Window, Jake whispered. Basement hatch, Tess said, prying up a trapdoor in the floor. Old storm shelter leads under the lot. The knocking grew louder, spreading now front, now side, now roof, like a dozen hands testing entry points. Jake hesitated at the hatch. You've done this before. Once. Her eyes were wide but steady. Didn't end well for him. For who? Trucker, the one in the photo. They climbed down into darkness. The hatch closed above them with a dull thud. The smell of dirt and metal filled the air. Tess flicked on her lighter. A small orange flame shivered over concrete walls. Stay quiet, she whispered. Jake listened. The knocks had stopped. Instead came the hum again, faint, resonant, traveling through the pipes like something alive. It rose, fell, then formed a rhythm almost like breathing. Jake met her eyes. That's not them. No, Tess said. That's what they call. The dirt floor was damp and cold, the air so still it felt borrowed. The lighter flame made a trembling halo that barely reached the walls, cinder block, sweating with condensation, etched with faint lines like scratches left by someone's restless hand. The hum pressed down from the pipes above. Not loud, but felt, a vibration deep in the chest. It rose in waves, building, fatting, returning with slow certainty. Jake whispered, "It's under us." Tess shook her head. "No, through us." She knelt, set the lighter near the wall, and traced one of the carvings with her fingertip. A perfect circle gouged into the block, 3 short lines at 2, 6, and 10. "The mark," Jake said. "They carved it here too." "Not carved." Her voice was barely air. "Grown." Before he could ask what that meant, something knocked from inside the wall. 3 sharp raps that echoed as if the concrete were hollow. Dust sifted down like gray snow. "Jesus." Jake staggered back. Tess didn't move. "They're testing if we'll answer." "I'm not answering anything." She stood, gripping the lighter tighter. "If you panic, it gets louder. It wants noise, fears like feedback." The hum shifted again, lower now, almost a voice, long, drawn vowels beneath hearing. Jake clamped his hands over his ears but still felt it under his skin, a tune vibrating through bone. Then a faint light bled under the hatch above them, cold, flickering, neon pink. "They turned the sign back on," Tess whispered. "They know we're down here." The hum flared, filling the small space with pressure. The circle on the wall began to glow faintly, edges pulsing like embers. Jake stumbled backward, hit another wall and gasped. Another circle. Another. The entire room was ringed with them, hundreds overlapping, each pulse answering the one before. "Get out," he hissed. "We have to get out." Tess shook her head. "No way back without opening the hatch, and that's worse." "Then what?" She turned the lighter on herself for a second, face hollow and terrified. "They follow patterns, Jake. Circles, light, noise. You break the loop, they lose interest." "Break it how?" She glanced up at the lighter's flame. "Kill the light." Before he could protest, she snapped her fingers over the flame. Darkness slammed shut. Instantly, the hum faltered, confused, searching. Jake's heartbeat filled his ears, too loud. Something brushed his shoe, soft as fabric. He froze. "Tess!" Her whisper came from the dark, close. "Don't move." A shape shifted near the far wall, a blur of motion where the faint glow of the marks pulsed. He saw it only in suggestion. Too tall, limbs uncertain, head tilted sideways like a curious animal. It stepped forward. The hum rose, trembling the floor. Tess's hand found his. Her grip was ice. "On 3, she whispered. "We run for the hatch." 1, the thing in the dark turned its head toward the sound. 2, the humming pitched higher, frantic. 3, Tess flung the lighter upward. It ignited mid-arc, flashing orange light across the room. In that split second, Jake saw everything. The thing wasn't one figure, but 3, overlapping like film exposures. Faces half-formed, melting into one another, outlines flickering between solid and smoke. Where their eyes should have been were small, glowing circles, the same shape etched on the walls. He screamed and shoved Tess toward the ladder. They climbed. Below, the hum became a roar. The concrete cracked. Hands too many reached up through the widening fissures. Tess slammed the hatch shut behind them, through the padlock. The noise cut off mid-breath. They collapsed against the stockroom shelves, lungs burning. Jake laughed once, a broken sound. "What the hell was that?" Tess stared at the hatch, trembling. "Whatever it is, that's what the marks invite. They mark the doors. The men outside, those are the doormen." Jake swallowed hard. "Then we're still trapped. Not if we finish the pattern." She dragged a box of cleaning fluid toward the door, tore it open. "Gasoline substitute," she said. "Mostly ethanol. You're going to burn it. Only way to close the loop." He hesitated, You'll die down here, she smiled, weary and small. Someone has to shut the lights off for good. Before he could argue, headlights flared through the front windows, police cruisers. The faint wail of sirens cut through the fog. Go, Tess said. Tell them everything. What about? She pressed the baseball bat into his hands. If they see this place burning, they'll think it was an accident. Let them. Then she shoved him toward the side door, unlatched it, and disappeared back into the stockroom. Jake ran. The fire. He hit the gravel just as the first window blew out. Flame rolled through the roof in a low, thunderous bloom. Officers shouted. One dragged him backward as debris rained down. The gas station roared like a furnace, pink neon melting into white heat. Through the flames, Jake thought he saw Tess for a heartbeat, standing by the hatch, lighter in hand, eyes reflecting circles of fire. Then the roof collapsed. The hum stopped. The aftermath. By dawn, the station was a skeletal frame. State police cordoned the area. They found no remains, only twisted rebar and the melted shape of a lighter fused to concrete. Jake gave his statement twice. The official report called it an electrical fault igniting cleaning supplies. He didn't argue. But later, while an officer filled out forms, Jake wandered to the edge of the lot. The fog had lifted. The earth around the old motel was cracked, the soil dark as ink. He crouched and brushed away ash. Beneath it, faint but unmistakable, was a mark burned into the ground. A perfect circle with 3 ticks at 2, 6, and 10. It pulsed once, like something breathing, and went still. Jake stood, shaking. The officer called his name. When he turned back, the mark was gone. 2 weeks later. Jake made it as far as Kansas City before the nightmares caught up. He rented a cheap room, lived on diner food, avoided night drives. He kept telling himself Missouri was behind him. Then one night he came back from a bar to find an envelope slipped under his door. No stamp, no handwriting. Inside was a single folded page torn from a notebook. If you see the circle again, don't run. Running draws them. Find a mirror. Break it. He stared at the signature. The handwriting matched the first note she'd given him. When he looked up, the motel TV had turned on by itself. Static hissed across the screen. In the gray snow of interference, something faint flickered, a circle glowing softly, waiting to be seen. He pulled the plug from the wall. The screen went dark. Outside, a passing truck's headlights swept the window. For a split second, the reflection on the glass showed a shape standing behind him, tall, half shadow, half light. He turned. Nothing. But on the dresser mirror, drawn in condensation, were 3 small ticks. 2, 6, 10. Epilogue, Highway Safety Advisory, January 2022. Missouri State Police Bulletin. Drivers are advised to avoid abandoned service stations along I-70 between Columbia and Kingdom City after midnight. Reports of roadway harassment and vandal symbols are under investigation. Witness descriptions include tall male suspects wearing dark jackets and a single recurring symbol resembling a clock face. No suspects have been identified. Handwritten addition on a copy found at the scene. The mark travels west. Story 4. The Overpass Ambush, Montana, 2020. Segment 1 of 3. Snow came sideways, thick as thrown sand. Laura Bennett leaned forward over the steering wheel, wipers clawing uselessly at the windshield. The interstate signs were ghosts half swallowed by white, their green skins stripped by the wind. Every few seconds the world vanished completely and returned one lane at a time. The GPS on the dash blinked, signal lost, its voice dying mid-word. She was somewhere between Missoula and Billings, 200 miles of nothing that locals called the Quiet Corridor. Laura's SUV was 4-wheel drive, the best her accountant's salary could buy, but even machines lost faith out here. The tires hissed through slush, the heater coughed, and the outside thermometer read 9 degrees F. She had driven the route a dozen times for clients, but never this late, never in weather that made the world feel erased. When she saw the outline of the overpass, concrete ribs arching over the highway, it felt almost like shelter. She eased beneath it, cutting the engine. Silence fell so quickly it hurt. The storm muffled everything. Even the ticking of the cooling engine sounded hesitant. Laura rubbed her eyes. 40 years old, single, sensible. Sensible enough to know she should wait out the whiteout before the road iced into glass. She checked her phone. One flickering bar of service, then none. Something moved beyond the wipers. At first she thought it was the snow shifting, the strange motion of wind against drifts. Then the figure resolved, a person crouched by her front tire. Her pulse jumped. The instinctive, practical part of her brain, the same part that triple-checked spreadsheets and memorized tax codes, started listing possibilities. Maybe a stranded motorist, maybe a good Samaritan. But her other instincts, older and quieter, whispered, nobody stops in a blizzard at midnight unless they belong to it. She reached for the flashlight in the glove compartment, flicked it on, and aimed it through the windshield. The beam caught a man in a dark parka, hood up, hands working deliberately near her wheel well. His back was to her. Snow dusted his shoulders. He didn't react to the light. "Hey," she called, lowering the window an inch. The wind slapped her words back. "Hey, what are you doing?" No answer. Just the rhythmic movement of gloved hands twisting something metallic. She fumbled for the ignition, ready to start the engine, but something in her wanted confirmation, wanted to know what he was doing. She leaned across, flipped the high beams. The man turned. His face was mostly scarf, but his eyes gleamed with the flat reflection of light that animals get when they aren't surprised at all. In one hand he held a wrench, in the other a short bolt. He straightened slowly, as if testing her patience, then tapped the wrench against the tire once, clink, and walked around the front of the car, disappearing into the white. Laura slammed the lock button and started the engine. The SUV growled awake. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, nope." She dropped it into gear and hit the gas. Tires spun once before gripping. The SUV lurched forward, fishtailing as she cleared the shadow of the bridge. In the mirror she saw him again, a black silhouette against the wall of snow, standing dead center in the lane, watching her taillights fade. 10 miles later. The storm thinned, becoming strings of ice flakes instead of a wall. Laura's hands cramped around the wheel. Her breathing was too loud inside the cab. She told herself she'd imagined the calm in his eyes. Nobody normal looks that calm. At mile marker 312, the right rear tire made a new sound, thunk, 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 like something trapped inside the tread. The pressure light blinked amber. Her heart sank. No, not now. She slowed to 40. The steering shuddered slightly. She imagined bolts loosening. Imagined her wheel rolling free into the snow. A green sign appeared through the haze. Truck stop 1 mile. She whispered a thank you to every god she didn't believe in and coasted toward the exit. The place was half buried. One gas island. A diner attached to a garage, lights dim but still alive. A plow truck idled near the pumps, unattended, engine growling. She parked near the diner door and cut the engine. Snow hissed against metal. Inside, the diner was lit by a single fluorescent buzzing like a hornet. A man behind the counter, 60 maybe, with the shape of someone who'd stopped caring about time, looked up from a crossword. "Hell of a night," he said. "Yeah," Laura forced a smile. "I think my tire's bad, something's off." He wiped his hands on a towel. "Plenty of folks run over junk in a storm, I can take a look." She hesitated, the memory of the man under the overpass clung like static. "You've got cameras out there," the old man snorted. "Had power lines keep freezing. Why? No reason." He disappeared into the garage with a flashlight and toolbox. Through the diner window, Laura watched him kneel by her SUV, light flickering over the tires. Minutes passed. The storm hissed against the glass. Then he straightened and came back in, brushing snow off his jacket. "Well," he set the flashlight on the counter. "You had 3 bolts loose. Somebody backed him off clean, probably meant to strand you. Lucky you stopped." Her stomach nodded. So it wasn't. "Accident, no." He met her eyes, expression flat. "You're not the first." "What do you mean?" He pointed to a corkboard by the door. Clipped, there were 3 printed flyers, missing across each. A woman, a man, a teenage boy, dates ranging from 2018 to 2020. "Patrol says it's the weather, wrong turns, hypothermia, but I seen footprints under that bridge more times than I can count. The overpass. Always starts there." Laura's pulse thudded in her ears. "Why haven't they closed it?" He smiled without warmth. "You can't close what the road keeps opening." He pulled something from his pocket, a small metal disc the size of a quarter. "Found this wedged behind your hubcap." She took it carefully. The surface was smooth except for a faint etching, a circle with 3 ticks at 12/48, the same mark. She swallowed hard. "What is it?" "Some say warning, some say invitation." He shrugged. "Doesn't matter which one you're the one it's left for. Later." She sat in the diner alone while he finished in the garage. The snow had slowed to a whisper. Her phone buzzed suddenly, 1 bar of signal, then 2. A text from an unknown number. "You saw him, don't stop again." Her hands went cold. She typed back, "Who is this?" But the message failed to send. The old man re-entered, rubbing his hands. "All set, bolts tight. I left the disc on your dash. Should hand it to the cops when you get to Billings." Laura nodded. Thanks. Drive careful under that overpass. Road crews found another car there last week. Empty. She left without replying. Outside, the plow truck still idled, exhaust steaming into the frozen air. Its cab was empty. As she opened her door, a faint metallic clink sounded, a coin dropping onto asphalt. She turned. Nothing there but swirling snow. She got in, started the SUV, and pulled onto the highway. Behind her, framed in the diner window, the old man stood watching. He lifted a hand slowly, as if to wave or warn, and the fluorescent light flickered once, twice, and went out. The road ahead was pure white again. The overpass waited somewhere behind her, patient as bone. The road east of the truck stop folded back into white oblivion. Laura's wipers kept time with her heartbeat, steady, desperate, unwilling to stop. Somewhere behind her, the overpass she'd fled was dissolving into snow, and with it the figure she pretended hadn't smiled when she fled. The heater barely held. Her hands ached around the wheel. The world beyond the glass was a tunnel of flakes swirling through high beams, hypnotic and endless. She turned the radio on for company. Static. Then faintly, an old AM broadcast leaking through the snowstorm. Travelers are urged to remain off Interstate 90 due to whiteout conditions. The voice warped, slowed, and cut to silence. For the next 30 miles, she saw nothing but the occasional reflector pole flashing by like a metronome. Her thoughts began to slide sideways, half dream, half math. If each reflector meant 100 feet, then she was counting distance, not safety. The mind liked to measure even when the body couldn't believe. At mile 341, the low-pressure light flickered again. She swore softly. Not possible, he just fixed it. She slowed to 50, listening. Thump, thump, thump. Not the sharp pop of a blowout, more like something brushing the tire at every rotation. Wind howled under the chassis, the sound was almost like whispering. She rolled down the window an inch. Cold bit her lungs. No voices, only the storm. But when she looked in the mirror, a faint glow pulsed where her rear wheel met the snow, the same dull orange as the dashboard warning. It blinked 3 times, paused, then again like a code. Not happening, she said aloud, because speaking anchored reality. She passed another overpass, a smaller one, half buried, its pillars etched with graffiti half hidden under ice. The glow at her rear wheel pulsed once more, then went dark. The GPS screen, long dead, flickered alive without signal. RECLCULATNG route, then a new direction arrow pointing backward. She turned the unit off, but it powered itself again. Return to Route 50, Nevada, it said, though she was hundreds of miles north. Laura yanked the plug free. The dash lights blinked twice in protest, then steadied. Keep driving, she muttered. Numbers can't haunt you. The second bridge. An hour later, the storm eased enough to reveal a rest area sign. She hadn't eaten since noon. Logic whispered she should stop. Instinct screamed don't. She almost laughed. Logic and instinct had divorced a long time ago. Still, she pulled in. The lot was empty except for one snow-covered sedan parked crooked near the vending machines. Its windows were frosted opaque. She left the engine running and stepped out. The air cut through her coat like glass. The snow squeaked underfoot, dry and brittle. Inside the restroom building, the motion light stuttered on, throwing hard fluorescence across concrete walls. The mirror above the sink was cracked, and in its corner, drawn with what looked like road salt, was a small circle with 3 ticks. Her breath fogged the glass. The circle glowed faintly beneath it. She wiped it with her glove. The mark didn't smear. It was inside the mirror. A sudden thud outside made her spin. The noise came from her SUV. Through the doorway, she saw a shape moving along its side. A man in a parka, hood up, hands tracing the door seam. The same rhythm, the same calm. Hey, she shouted. Get away from the car. The figure straightened slowly. The wind tore his hood sideways, revealing not a face but a plastic mask, the kind used for CPR training, pale and featureless except for empty eye sockets. He tilted his head, watching her without eyes. Then he raised one hand and tapped the driver's side window once, twice, 3 times. Each tap echoed inside her ribs. Laura's fight or flight chose both. She ran toward the SUV, shouting, "I'm calling the police!" The man didn't move. When she reached him, he was gone, no footprints, no shadow, nothing but snow swirling in place. Her door was unlocked. She hadn't left it that way. On the driver's seat lay a single metal bolt identical to the ones the mechanic had tightened earlier, and beside it, drawn in frost on the window, the circle symbol. She slammed the locks, started the engine, and floored it out of the rest area. The tires howled. The mirror shook. Behind her, the abandoned sedan's headlights flicked on by themselves, glowing dimly through the storm. The voice. For 10 miles, the only sound was wind and her heartbeat. Then her phone, long dead of service, buzzed once and lit up. Unknown number. A text appeared. Stop at next bridge. Leave the disc. They're tracing metal. She stared at it, half in rage, half in disbelief. Who are you? She whispered. The phone buzzed again. You've seen them. You'll understand soon. The name on the contact line glitched between blank and a single letter. H. She glanced at the dashboard where the etched disc still lay. Snow reflected off its surface in dull flashes. She picked it up. It was freezing, heavier than it should be. The carved ticks caught light like tiny mirrors. The hum returned, faint through the floorboards. Her rearview mirror trembled. For a moment she thought the road was splitting, but then she realized it was something behind her. Headlights approaching fast, cutting through the white like twin spears. Too fast for this weather. She pressed the accelerator, but the SUV shuddered. The low-pressure warning flared red. The approaching lights grew larger, brighter, merging into one glare. The hum deepened. Her steering wheel vibrated violently. Then through the glare she saw what followed. Not one vehicle but many, lined in single file, headlights perfectly spaced, moving in silence. Too uniform for traffic. Too synchronized for chance. In the brief flash between snow gusts, she saw that none had drivers. Empty seats, steering wheels turning on their own. Not real, she whispered. Not real. First vehicle, an old sedan, pulled up beside her, matching speed. Its windows were blacked out except for a crack where someone had drawn the circle symbol from the inside. The car stayed even with her for a mile, then drifted ahead, slowing as if to lead. The next overpass loomed through the snow, wide, freshly built, lights flickering along its length. The sedan ahead slowed to a crawl, signaling right as though inviting her under. Her phone buzzed again. If you stop, you join them. If you don't, you bring them. Choose carefully. She gritted her teeth, eyes stinging with tears and exhaustion. I'm done choosing. She swerved left, off the plowed lane, snow spraying over the hood. The convoy of cars continued beneath the bridge, vanishing like ghosts re-entering a tunnel. Her SUV slid sideways, fishtailed, and spun once before coming to rest facing the opposite direction. The headlights caught the bridge pillars, concrete gray, smooth, unmarked except for one new stain of melted snow forming a perfect circle. Inside it, 3 ticks glowed faintly. The hum faded. The storm stilled, as if exhaling. Laura leaned her forehead against the steering wheel and let herself shake. The stranger. A new set of lights appeared down the road, blue and red this time. She blinked through tears as a highway patrol truck pulled up beside her. A man in a dark coat stepped out, not uniform, but official enough to look safe. His badge read Highway Response Division. He tapped on her window. You all right, ma'am? She rolled it down an inch. I think someone sabotaged my car. There were vehicles. He nodded calmly. Happens more than you'd think. His tone was careful, gentle. You saw the mark, didn't you? Her throat went dry. You know about it. He smiled slightly. You're not the first to make it this far. He reached into his pocket and held up something small, a metal disc identical to hers. We collect them, keeps the road quiet. Laura's hand hovered near the ignition. Who are you really? He set the disc on her window ledge. Just someone who cleans up after the noise. Wind picked up again, scattering snow between them. When she looked up, he was already walking back to his truck. But there was no truck. Only tire tracks fatting into the snow. The storm broke near dawn, leaving the world drowned in stillness. Snow covered the interstate like a blank page. Only the long blue shadows of the overpass cut through it. Laura sat motionless in her SUV, engine off, breath ghosting the glass. The man in the dark coat, the cleaner, had vanished as if the snow itself had swallowed him. The metal disc he'd left on the window still glittered faintly, throwing back the early light. She reached for it. The surface felt warmer than metal should, and when she turned it over, she saw an inscription she hadn't noticed before, engraved so finely it was almost invisible. Keep the road closed. She slid it into her pocket and stepped out. The air was knife cold, the kind that made sound brittle. In the silence, even her footsteps felt too loud. The bridge loomed above, thick pillars streaked with meltwater, shadows yawning beneath. The asphalt under it looked wrong, patches of gray darker than the rest, as if the road had been burned smooth. She walked closer. Someone had drawn a circle at the base of the center pillar. Not etched, not painted, melted. The snow around it had turned to steam and frozen again, leaving a glossy rim of ice. 3 ticks glowed faintly inside the circle. She backed away. Her breath hitched. The hum started again, deep in the concrete, resonating up through her boots. Then headlights flared at the far end of the bridge. A line of vehicles approached, different makes, different years, moving in perfect unison. At their head drove the same highway response truck that had just vanished, the cleaner's silhouette steady behind the wheel. Laura ran for her SUV, slipped and fell hard onto her knees. The truck rolled to a stop 10 yards away. Its driver's door opened. The cleaner stepped out, face hidden by snow glare. "You kept driving," he said. "Good. What are you?" she shouted. "What are they?" He looked past her toward the pillar. "The road remembers every death that happens on it. Most fade, some don't. The ones that don't need caretakers. The marks." "Entry points," he said. "We mark them before they spread. Sometimes we fail." He walked closer, boots crunching in perfect rhythm with the hum. "You've seen what happens when the wrong people play with them. Trappers, thieves, those men on I-70. They think the circles lure victims. They don't realize they're feeding what lives underneath." Laura's skin crawled. "You're saying this is all connected. Nevada, Oklahoma, Missouri." "It always starts on a lonely road," he said quietly. "It always ends the same way. Someone survives long enough to warn the next." He stopped beside her, gloved hand extended. "Give me the disc." Instinct told her to refuse. She gripped it tighter. "If this closes it, I'm keeping it shut myself." He tilted his head. "You can't close what you don't understand." The hum deepened. The circle at the pillar brightened until it glowed red through the snow. Cracks webbed outward, pulsing. "Now," he said, voice sharper, "or it opens for good." Laura's hand shook as she offered the disc. He placed it against the pillar's center. The glow flickered, then dimmed, shrinking into a single ember. Steam hissed from the cracks, smelling of iron and ozone. When it cleared, the circle was gone. The cleaner turned to her. "You'll keep driving east. When someone asks what happened under this bridge, tell them the road was fixed. Don't tell them how." He started toward his truck. "What if it opens again?" She called. He paused. "Then someone like you will be there to see it." He climbed into the cab. The convoy behind him dissolved one vehicle at a time, like reflections fading when the light source dies. In seconds, only tire tracks remained, and then even those filled with snow. 2 weeks later. Billings looked bright and harmless under the noon sun. Laura filed her report with the state patrol. Unknown male, possible sabotage, vehicle interference. The clerk barely listened. "Lucky you didn't crash," he said. "That stretch eats cars every winter." As she left, he added almost absently, "Funny, though. We just had another one couple miles west of where you broke down. Same tire bolts, same mark on the hubcap." Her stomach dropped. "What happened to them?" He shrugged. "Still missing. The motel room." That night she stayed at a roadside motel outside Sheridan, Wyoming. Old carpet, yellow lamp, the kind of place where the silence hums. When she unpacked her coat, the pocket felt heavier. She reached inside and pulled out not one, but 2 metal discs. The second was slightly different, same circle, but the ticks had moved. 12, 4, 8 right arrow now 2, 6, 10. The sequence from Missouri. She stared at it until her eyes blurred. When she looked away, she noticed the room's bathroom mirror had fogged, though she hadn't run water. Across the condensation, written by an unseen finger. "It's still open." She grabbed her phone. No service. The hum began again, faint through the walls. She backed toward the door, but stopped when the bedside radio clicked on by itself. Static, then a voice she knew too well. The watcher from Oklahoma, calm and even. "If you see the mark, keep moving. The road only eats what waits." The voice faded into white noise. Outside, a semi passed, its horn long and mournful. In the glow from its taillights, the mirror words smeared themselves away, leaving a faint circle etched in the glass that wouldn't wipe clean. Epilogue Federal Highway Incident File R0, March 2021. Summary. Repeated reports of vehicle tampering and disappearance along rural interstates I-90, I-70, I-44, and Route 50 have been linked by a recurring symbol, an unbroken circle marked at variable clock positions. Witness accounts mention a male subject in dark coat, alias the watcher / the cleaner. Subject's existence unverified. Pattern of incidents migrates west to east approximately 200 miles per year. Recommendation. Continue closure of affected overpasses during extreme weather. Monitor for low-frequency vibrations in concrete foundations. Handwritten note appended, unknown author. The marks are coordinates, not warnings. Every survivor carries the next one. Dakota. Months later, a dashcam clip circulated among truckers. A woman's voice whispering, "Don't stop under the bridge," followed by the shape of an overpass swallowing the lens. Authorities said it was fake, an AA-stitched urban legend. But in the last frame, before the feed cut to static, 3 faint ticks glowed in the corner, 12, 4, 8, spinning like a clock winding backward.